Oasis of Healing in Arizona, where we do integrative cancer treatment, and I've been here developing our educational program. So nutrition is a very big base of what we do here, and basically is what we call the school of life. So we want to teach people how to live life in a healthier way. So it's not about fighting disease, but about creating health so we don't get disease at all. And today, and since we are surrounded by these epidemics of the coronavirus, I'm going to talk to you about fostering a strong immune system, and especially I'm gonna talk about fasting and eating for humans. And this is something that Dr. Lodi also mentioned previously, is that often we are not eating what we as human beings are supposed to eat. And I think one of the most important things when we try to learn how to eat is, first of all, learn how not to eat. Most of the population in the world is able to be eating for maybe 12 hours of their day. So it's the first thing they do in the morning, it's the last thing they do at night, and that's not a healthy way to eat. So I think, first of all, we have to learn how not to eat. So let's talk about fasting. What is fasting? What types of fasting you can apply in your life, and what are the health benefits of fasting? Because fasting and the word fasting has been used all over. So let's take a deeper look into what fasting really means. And if you go to the dictionaries, you can actually see that fasting is abstaining from all or some kinds of foods or drinks, especially as a religious observance. And this should give us some hints that in religions all over the world, fasting was a common practice. So it's not something new. Actually, Jesus fasted, Moses fasted. So all of the big leaders used to fast because that also brings mental clarity. So we can also see fasting as a deliberate abstinence from physical gratification to achieve a greater spiritual goal. And again, by not gratifying your body, you can achieve higher states of consciousness. And this is especially if you do a prolonged fast, again, which has been very correlated with some religions. And Mr. Herbert Shelton, which his books are very more than 100 years, and this wisdom comes from long ago. He used to say that to starve is to die, but to fast is to live. So we have a lot to learn from these ancient scholars that were already developing this fasting a long time ago, although only now it became kind of a trend. So what is the purpose of fasting? So first of all is that spiritual or mind-body connection that we have lost. So understanding that we are not the body, but we are the spirit that is wearing this body. And we are just, when we are so connected to physical gratification and eating, we kind of lose touch with our spiritual side. So fasting is very good to regain that connection. And also, and mostly to realize that we are not we're not slaves of food. Most people, and we see a lot of food addictions because people are dependent on food. You regain an ability to reconnect with yourself, your body, your sensations, your mind, even your hunger, which sometimes we say we are hungry, but we're not really hungry. We're just having appetites and desires and cravings. It's an opportunity to rest, detoxify, and heal. And it also triggers cell-based self-repair and autophagy, which I'm going to talk later, and promotes rejuvenation from within. So in an age that people look so much also into anti-aging and into looking younger and youthful and healthier, fasting is one of the best things you can implement. And its caloric restriction, which happens when we fast, is also one of the only ways we can trigger intracellular cleaning. So why should we fast, and what are the benefits of fasting? Reduce insulin resistance and inflammation. We know that insulin resistance with time leads to prediabetes, diabetes type 2, and high inflammation in the body leads to chronic disease. It's protective and stress. It puts you in a protective and stress-resistant mode. So I even advise people when they go to a situation where they will be under high levels of stress, or for example, if you're going to fly and you're exposed to so many radiations and toxicants in the environment around you, I recommend people to fast because it protects you. Again, it triggers autophagy, and I'm going to explain it later, which helps you to clean up and get rid of damaged cells. Activates and increases in-cell-based self-repair and cellular rejuvenation. Improves brain function, and this is very clear when you start trying fasting and increasing your hours of fasting. You're going to see your brain and your ability to focus improves highly. Increase growth hormone secretion, and this is very important, especially for those of you who don't want to lose muscle, who think, oh, if I'm going to fast, I'm going to get skinny. But actually, the production of our growth hormone increases when we fast. We release growth hormone mainly at night, and for some reason is because it's when we're not eating. And so if we're not eating for a longer period of time, that production and the release will be higher. So it helps even to keep and build up muscle. May delay aging and increase longevity. And again, this is one of what our society is looking so much into. Benefits treatment and prevention of cancer. We see a lot in our centers, and one of the goals we have is that our patients, when they leave our centers, they are already educated into fasting as being part of their daily lives. And we also use it with some treatments because it enhances the benefits of the treatments. So let's understand better what is fasting, because there's a lot of confusion out there. So let's understand feasting, fasting, intermittent fasting, time-restricted eating, and calorie restriction. So these are all different things, and it might sound confusing now, but I'm sure that after I present it to you, it's going to be very easy to understand. So one of the first misconceptions is when people talk about feasting or juicing. So when you're juicing, you're doing a juice feast. So you're actually flooding your cells with nutrients. And fasting is done with water. So when people say, I'm going to do a juice fast, that is not a fast at all. So that is a feast. It has its health benefits, many of them, but it's not a fast. So this is very easy to distinguish. So when we talk about fasting, we talk about water. And in a juice feasting, it's good we don't have any burden on digestion. There's a direct nutrient delivery. We still are restricting our calories, which has health benefits. There's some weight loss, but more moderate, and provides live enzymes to the body and helps those who are nutritionally deprived, and works well for most of the people. So when you do a juice feast, you're actually flooding your body with nutrients. So if someone is suffering for some kind of illness and it's not able to do a water fast, a juice feast is a very good idea. You still get enzymes, nutrients, and good nutrition into your body. Then when we talk about fasting, again, there's no burden on digestion. There's a total cessation of nutrients. So we're not getting any nutrients. There's usually more fat loss and overall weight loss. Caloric restriction again. works well for many people, but not for all, and this is very important. And in the end of this part of the presentation, I'll tell you which people should not fast. And again, long fasts should be done under doctor's supervision. And in Thailand, we have high success with prolonged water fasting, and I can talk to you a little bit more about it when we go to the water fasting part. But that should be done with a doctor. Just a little bit more about juicing. It's usually called a cleanse or detox. The juices are made from vegetables, herbs, and fruits. Ideally, you want to add more vegetables than fruits because fruits are high on natural sugars. So if you add a fruit, it will be just a little bit to give it some sweetness. You can also have water, herbal teas, and sometimes even clear broths. And it really helps to absorb all the nutrients without giving our body a need to digest. Fasting, only water. Eventually some minerals and some added salt to your water because we do want to keep our electrolytes balanced. Usually daily we recommend, depending where you live, your level of activity, your weight, but about half a teaspoon of sea salt a day, or good salt, Himalayan pink salt, Celtic salt. And fasting with water is the most universal, logic, and instinctive method of healing. And you can notice this in nature by looking at other animals and the way they, when they are needing to heal, when they are wounded, they just crawl into a corner, they don't eat. They allow their bodies to fast and to heal. And removes all the burden of digesting and assimilating food so the body can exclusively focus on other processes. And now here is where most of the confusion comes when we talk about fasting and the words are thrown a little bit outside. So calorie restriction is different from intermittent fasting, which is different from time-restricted eating. On calorie restriction is basically what you do with a juicing or a diet that is low on calories. So you reduce your calories for a certain period. Imagine 5 days of the week, you're gonna eat very few calories, or you're doing a juice feast, maybe 500 to 600 calories daily, and you eat normally on the other days. And usually people use the rule 5-2. So 5 days you eat normally, 2 days you can do this reduced calorie intake. Or if you go to a juice fast, sometimes it's a week or 2 weeks, depending on the goals that you have. It's very good to control your weight, blood pressure, cholesterol, and blood glucose. Actually, people who come to the center where Dr. Lodi is working in Thailand and they do the juice fast within a week, all of these things usually come back to normal. So it's very effective. And then we have intermittent fasting and time-restricted eating. And here is where most people confuse. So a lot of people talk about intermittent fasting when they're actually talking about time-restricted eating. Intermittent fasting means that for at least 24 hours, you're just drinking water or having no caloric intake. So it's not about not eating between meals or having a long period without eating. No, it's at least 24 hours of no food. And you cycle between days where you'll have food and days where you don't have food. You can do alternate day fasting, which you would eat one day, don't eat the other. By the end of the year, you would have fasted for 6 months, for example. Or you can fast 1 or 2 days per week. And this is usually what we recommend our patients and everyone who is trying to start to fast, is to include 1 day, 24 hours is very simple, of a water fast a week. And it can be as simple as, imagine in a Sunday, you had a big lunch with your family, you finished around 3 o'clock and you're pretty full, so give your body some rest and don't eat until 3 o'clock the next day. So it's pretty easy, and only the first time it's more complicated. Oh, I'm not eating, but once you get used to it, it's pretty simple. You can create any other combination that works for you, so there's no pattern, and this is in overall nutrition. There's no one rule that applies to everyone. There's no one diet that is the best for everyone. So you have to see what works for you. And during the fast, fast means water. It doesn't mean juices. It doesn't mean herbal teas or coffee. If you really want to do it properly, it should be just water, maybe some added sea salt. Again, it really helps with weight, blood pressure, cholesterol, and blood glucose. And then we have time-restricted eating, which most of you probably have tried, and it's what most people talk about nowadays, which you cycle between hours that you eat, you do not eat. And this is how us human beings were probably hardwired to be. So we wouldn't wake up first thing in the morning and eat, and we wouldn't be eating until we go to bed. In this case, we try to restrict our eating window, and usually what we recommend our patients, and I recommend everyone in general, is to use a window of 18 hours of not eating and 6 hours of eating. So for example, if you start eating at 10 a.m., you'd be finished by 6 p.m. If you start at 12, you finish by 8, and that's a good rule. Actually, sorry, 10 to 4 and 12 to 6. In the 18 hours that you do not eat, you can drink water or non-calorie beverages. So we don't want any calories in our body. Even those people who have their water with lemon in the morning, that has calories, that will break your fast, so that will prevent the full benefits of not eating within this window. So really try to have everything that has calories within that window of time. Very effective for weight control, blood pressure, cholesterol, and blood glucose also. So all of them have similar benefits, but different actions, and also it depends on what works for you. And usually what I tell our patients, and it's very effective, is you try to do the time-restricted eating 5-6 days of the week, and then you do 1 day water fast. And if within your year you have the ability to take a week to do a prolonged water fast or a juice feast, you can do that. So let's dive a little bit deeper into the water fast. Like I said, it's becoming more and more popular, and it's often when you tell someone you're not eating, they're gonna say, what? You're gonna die, or you cannot do that, or it's harmful for you. And that's why Dr. Lodi says it's so important for us to keep reading, to keep reaching out to information and education. And he also says that water is the only cure handed to man by nature. And this is true, and it's been used for centuries, but we lost these ancient traditions. So it's important to regain this knowledge. During a water fast, your body has time for cleaning and renovating its own cells, so it's time for healing. If you observe, our brain consumes around 25% of our daily energy, and around 30% is spent on digestion. Now imagine if you're not spending 30% of your energy digesting food and assimilating food, how much potential you will have to achieve healing and to achieve even better focus, better brain function. The body wastes all of these energy, wastes or uses, it's utilized on the production of enzymes, elimination of toxins, and through the blood circulation and ultimately through bowels. And the fasting is basically a timeout on your digestive system. So even for those of you who have digestive system issues like IBS, Crohn's, dysbiosis, I mean, nowadays we find more and more people with digestive issues. So water fasting is one of the best methods you can use. So if you have a wound, or if you're wounded, a sprained ankle, and you keep walking on your ankle, it's not going to heal. If we have a problem in our digestive tract and we keep using it over and over and over again, and not giving it a time to heal, it will not heal and it will probably get worse. So the body can use this extra energy to start cleaning and renovating itself. The cleansing starts from the blood and the liver, and that's why you see here this beautiful picture of our digestive system in our big liver. Our liver has more than 300 functions, and it's the major organ of detoxification in the body, but it also has an amazing ability to heal. So it's one of the first organs that you'll start getting improvements. There's many benefits of water fasting, and we could talk a lot more about water fasting, but it's not the main goal of this presentation. But going through some of them, decreases inflammation. And again, I remind you that inflammation is the basis. Chronic inflammation will lead to chronic disease. So we're talking about things like cancer, heart disease, diabetes. It increases the resistance to oxidative stress. And what is this? It's what we call when there's free radicals, which are molecules that are naturally produced during metabolism. But if our body is not able to react to those free radicals properly, we're gonna, again, increase the risk of disease and inflammation. So this will increase our resistance to oxidative stress. It improves cell recycling, and I'll talk a little bit more about it. Cardiovascular health, brain health. Actually, you notice when you go to a water fast, the first days, like 3 days, it's mainly physical, the effect. And because your body is relearning how to use mainly fat for energy, not so much sugar. But once you pass that phase and you're running on fats, on ketones for fuel, you'll notice that your cognition, your brain focus will be much improved. Supports collagen in the skin, so it's good for your, if you want to look youthful. Reduce harmful protein production. Improves body composition and fitness. Why? Because we'll be burning fat, so it's extra fat that our body does not need, that it reserve it to times of need, because that's how human biology is. It's perfect in the sense that we give it too much, it will reserve it, so when we need it, it will use it. And it will improve our fitness, again, because like I said, fasting stimulates growth hormone. Supports fat loss and ketosis, lowers blood pressure, decreases blood sugar, boosts your metabolism. So on blood pressure and blood sugar, this is very, very clear, and it will happen very quickly. Also, we see it maybe within 3 to 5 days, those things will be regulated. Promotes heart health, lowers the risk of chronic disease, and may slow aging and enhance longevity. And actually, this has been proven in many animal studies that calorie restriction, or and we talk about calorie restriction even when there's no calories, the longevity of these animals in studies is much higher. But it's important to understand exactly what's happening, right? Because this may sound, okay, it may make sense, but I'm still afraid to do it. What is going to happen really to my body? Is it safe? It is not safe. I mean, I'm going to starve, and people will scare you if you try to do it. So it's important to understand what is happening, and I hope I can explain you better. So looking at our cell and going back a little bit maybe to our times in school, there's these organelles called the lysosomes. And these organelles, what they do is that they digest they digest things inside the cell, materials inside the cell. And they're usually taking their time digesting things that we're eating, so they don't have time to digest anything else. But the truth is, when it's normal from the toxic lives that we live, that we form materials inside our cell that are not fully functional, or for example, it's normal that our mitochondria, when they're exposed to not good environments, they will not be functioning properly. And what happens is that usually our body gets rid of those cellular organelles that are not functioning properly. So the caloric restriction is the only documented way to upregulate intracellular cleansing, which means that besides what we eat, and now we have time to dedicate to what's happening inside the cell, we're going to start to clean our own cells. Like I said, the lysosomes will do that because they are usually very busy breaking down food and cleaning up other intracellular wastes. And finally, when we don't eat food and they are not so busy doing that, they start to digest damaged organelles. And organelles are, the nucleus are the mitochondria and other organelles within the cell. So the nucleus will not happen, but it's important to actually recycle our mitochondria. And so this is what happens inside our cells. And this is a very good demonstration. So the cell forms kind of a membrane that will encapsulate the organelle that it's not functioning well. And in this image, you can see that membrane is encapsulating a mitochondria. And mitochondria are the organelles that produce energy inside our cells. And actually, when these mitochondria are not functional or not in number enough or not behaving normally, that usually leads to cancer. So that's the importance of these mitochondria. So if they're not functioning well, we want to get rid of them before something more chronic sets up. So this membrane that develops within the cell will encapsulate the mitochondria in what's called an autophagosome. And then the lysosomes, well, that we talked before, will come into that kind of encapsulation, and they will drop their acid hydrolases that will digest the organelle, and then there's the breakdown and the degradation of these organelles. And that's how our cells clean themselves. And this is a very essential process. And it's a process that if you're eating all the time, it won't happen, or it won't happen as much. It still happens when you sleep. And that's why often Dr. Lodi says that sleep is even more important than what you eat, because when you sleep well, you will trigger these processes and then you will eat more properly. So fasting pushes cell to this process and allows the degradation and recycling of cellular components. This is the only way for our cells to repair their structures. So this is the importance of this process. It's the only way that our cells will repair themselves. And now look at your environment. How many toxicants are you exposed daily? Since the sheets and the bed and the mattress that you're laying on that have chemicals on them. Then you go, you take your shower and the water may have chlorine on it. Then you use your products and your products have chemicals on them. You brush your teeth and you get fluoride. And maybe you have your router on and you are exposed to EMF radiation. All of these things create damage in our cells. We're not aware of it because it's inside of our body, but it creates damage. So if this is the only way that we can repair them, then we need to allow our body to do it. Healthy cell structures result in an anti-inflammatory environment. And this is what we want. Inflammation equals disease. So we need to clean out our cells. Again, here it's another very good explanation of what happens with autophagy. And it's a crucial defense mechanism against malignancy, infection, and neurodegenerative diseases. So our bodies and nature, God, or whatever you want to call it, didn't make mistakes. Everything that happens within our body is a reaction to something within the environment. So if you're not hungry when you're sick, it's because your body is telling you it needs time to heal and to focus on these processes. So really allow yourself to heal. And it's good, it prevents degenerative diseases, cancer. It enhances your immune system. It reduces infectious diseases. It helps with type 2 diabetes or reverses type 2 diabetes. Fortunately, it's not a chronic disease. It's something that is reversible. So it's super important. What are the main benefits of this process? Elimination of senescent cells. So even sometimes it's not the organelles, but the cells themselves that are old and damaged cells, and our body, the best way to deal with them is not wasting energy in repairing them, but just getting rid of them. So it's just cleaning out, letting go of the cells that are not longer needed. And this is what happens with cancer. Cancer has processes that stop these elimination of cells, and that's dangerous. So when we have this elimination is good. Eliminate viral infected cells. And again, in the spectrum of the coronavirus, this is super important. So your body will recognize that those cells are infected and it will get rid of them. It degrades damaged organelles, cell membranes, and proteins. Reduce cell apoptosis. So if the cell repairs itself, then it doesn't need to destroy as many cells as it would have to if they are not repairing. So there's not so much need to destruction, which leads to less metabolic waste and reduced inflammation, because there's not so much waste within your cells and within your blood even. Improve mitochondrial health. And again, mitochondria are super important. They are the power plants of our body where we produce energy. So you will feel more energetic when you do not eat. And prevent cellular degeneration because it's repairing the cells. And in all, it will give you a stronger and more resilient body and mind. So again, for these types of environments when we are exposed to not just a pandemic, but news, fake news, a lot of information and confusing information, having a strong, not just body, but mind is super important. Now, in everything in life, there's potentially negative side effects. And again, they are not transverse to everyone. You may have some, you may have none, you may have all. You may have headaches, dizziness, mental fog, and lethargy. And this usually it's because you're not getting enough electrolytes. And that's why I recommended to add 1/2 to 1 teaspoon of salt a day when you drink your water. Some people may develop diarrhea, and this is just a cleansing process of the body too. And sometimes people want the body to behave unnaturally. They want everything to be normal. But when the body is getting rid of so much toxic waste that we have, it's natural that you get diarrhea. But you can try to prevent it by adding some psyllium husk. And this is more not when you're doing a complete water fast, because this would add calories, but on the other types of fasting, you can do that. Constipation, of course, if you're not eating, you may suffer for some constipation. But actually what I notice is when people eat less frequently, their bowels will move better. So, but what we can do is just drink more water, exercise, or even do some colonics. Some people have insomnia or feeling of anxiety. And this is because your brain actually, it's more hardwired. So you probably will feel that you're more present, that you're more aware, more focused. And sometimes when it's time to sleep, you're still very energetic because you're not used to it. You may experience acid reflux. So 1 or 2, 3 tablespoons, 1 to 3 tablespoons of lemon juice or raw unfiltered apple cider vinegar will usually help with this. And again, this is for those that are doing intermittent fasting or when you're eating, not on a water fast. And another common side effect would be bad breath. But again, a good oral hygiene should really help with this. Drinking more water, do some oil pulling, or even tongue scraping. And very important, who should not fast? Okay, so fasting is not for everyone, although it brings a lot of health benefits. People who are significantly underweight or cachectic. So patients, for example, who have cancer may not be advisable to do a water fast, or people who are very underweight. People with type 1 diabetes, they may still get benefits, still recommended to do it under doctor supervision. Women who are pregnant or breastfeeding should avoid it. They can still do some types of time-restricted eating with a broader window, maybe 8 hours of eating. Under 18-year-old, there's a possibility of doing this, but again, under medical supervision. People who are struggling to gain weight, obviously, they should avoid fasting. People who have eating disorders, this is super important. Fasting can aggravate eating disorders, so I completely don't advise it. If you're taking certain medications, you should get your doctor's recommendation on this. And extreme athletes in season, because it may, obviously, especially if people are not used to do it, it may impact their athletic performance. And like St. Augustine said, fasting cleanses the soul, raises the mind, subjects one's flesh to the spirit, renders the heart contrite and humble, scatters out concupiscence, quenches the fire of lust, and kindles the true light of chastity. Enter again into yourself. So I would highly recommend each and every one of you to fast. And it may seem complicated at first, but it becomes very simple, and it's basically just don't eat and drink water. So now that you understand fasting, it's much easier to understand eating, okay? Because the first step of learning how to eat is learning how not to eat. So can eating be that complicated? Why is there so much confusion around eating? I don't think it's complicated at all. And actually, I think you're going to understand that once we finish the presentation. So here's some basics of healthy eating, and I try to share them with everyone, and we apply them to our patients here at an Oasis of Healing. And they take these advices home, and it's very effective. So you do 2 to 3 meals a day, and that's it. Ideally, we even say 2 meals a day, and possibly even 1 meal a day. So, and that meal can last maybe around 2 hours. It's not you sit and eat in 10 minutes. No, it should be something with time, with love, and dedication. Whole food, plant-based. So very simple, whole foods, unprocessed foods, and plant-based. So use plants as much as you can. As much as you can, also raw foods. So try not to cook your food as much as you do. And I know, especially in Asia, people are used to eating almost everything cooked, but try to eat more raw foods. Vegans, so trying to avoid animal products. There's a lot of reasons behind this. And again, I could do a full presentation on it, but just try to restrict the animal consumption. Organic, because we know the importance of that eating clean foods has in our system. So all of your cells, the membranes in your cells, your organelles are made from the nutrients and the components, the macronutrients you get from food. So if those macronutrients are loaded with chemicals from glyphosate and other chemicals they use on crops, then that's what's going to be the building blocks of your cells. So you basically building yourself to be sick.
Wow.
Try to eat locally and in season. So if you live in Asia, try to, or in Thailand, or here in the United States, try to get your food that is locally grown and it hasn't traveled half the world, and that is in season. So don't try to eat maybe guavas out of season, or don't try to import products that you don't have or to eat them, because you'll be supporting your local farmers and markets, and you're supporting also your immune system and your gut microbiome, which is super important. But again, that's another topic. And I say here, use the rule of 80-20 or 70-30. What does this mean? The 80 is trying to follow all of these things. So whole food, plant-based, raw, vegan, organic, local, and in season. And then the 20 or 30% would be the exceptions. So if you're having some cooked food or some animal food, make it the exception and not the rule. This is basic, like avoid processed and junk food. Dr. Lodi mentioned that it's quite amazing that we still find people who think that processed food and junk food is not bad for them. It's not good for you. It doesn't have any health benefits. I don't even like to call junk food because I think it should just be called poison. So it's not food. It's not nutritious for your body. It won't help you to live, to survive, even less to thrive. And I think we all want to thrive. Avoid trans fats. Trans fats are fats that have been processed by humans, usually partially hydrogenated oils like soybean oil, sunflower oil, or margarines and other compounds that have been they insert hydrogen so that they become more solid at room temperature. So margarines are a good example of it. And also when you fry your food with those fats, it becomes really just poison. It's not even food. So drink plenty of water, and don't drink it with the meals. Drink it away from the meals, because our stomach needs to be acidic in order to have a proper digestion. If you drink water with your meal, you'll be diluting the acidity of your stomach, which means that you probably have more problems digesting food and even acid reflux. If you want to supplement or you're not having enough vegetables in your diet, you can have some vegetable juices that are very nutrient dense. And if possible, ideal, grow your own food. You can have a small garden in your backyard or even inside your house, just for a few things that you can grow yourself. And always bring gratitude to your meals. And this was lost with time, being grateful, or just taking a moment before you start eating. Be grateful for the food you have in front of you, for this planet Earth that allows you to have that food, for the people that allow that food to reach to you. So just be grateful. And so how does a human meal look like? Because food can look very different ways. And I'm not gonna go deep into what it means to eat animal food. I'm just gonna tell you that if you are in the wild and if you see ripe fruit, you probably salivate and you feel like eating. But if you're in the same wild and see a cow in the pasture, you won't salivate and you won't feel like eating that cow. So that can give you a clue of what you as human being were designed to eat. A carnivore will salivate when it sees a cow, but we don't. So we're not supposed to eat animal products, but I'm not here to discuss that. So let's go to our plant power. So your food, your dish should be filled with dark leafy greens, things like spinach, and now I don't remember, but other dark leafy greens, even lettuce. It's not that dark, it's not so nutritious like spinach, but it's a good example. And a lot of people like it, so it's a good way to start introducing leafy greens into your diet. Cruciferous vegetables like cauliflower, cabbage, broccoli, arugula. And then colorful vegetables like peppers, bell peppers, tomatoes, beets, whatever gives some color to your plate. So try to eat with all of the colors of the rainbow, because different colors also means different phytochemicals. And phytochemicals are chemicals that the plants have to fight their own aggressors. And when you eat them, they have the same benefits for you. So they will help you fight the aggressions from the outside world. And they serve also as antioxidants. Then eat plenty of sprouts. You can do sprouts from seeds, beans, and lentils. And a sprout is full of life. Like Darren was saying, when we sprout a nut, but just by putting it in water, its nutritional value is much higher, and it also lowers the acidity of the nuts. And when we're talking about sunflower sprouts or bean sprouts, lentil sprouts, it's the potential of life contained within a seed. It's becoming alive. So you're eating a living food and full of nutrition. For example, a broccoli sprout is estimated to have 300 times more nutrition than a broccoli when it's full grown. So sometimes if you have a hard time eating big salads, a lot of vegetables, just opt to introduce more sprouts. You get the same level of nutrition with less food. Microgreens, again, is just small cabbage, small arugula, small broccoli. Those are called microgreens. Seaweed, if you can, this is very common in Japanese culture to eat a lot of seaweed, and we see that before their food industry was completely disturbed by Western culture, they used to have very, very low rates of cancer and other chronic diseases, and seaweed is a major contributor. And then mushrooms, all types of mushrooms have many health benefits. So, and you don't need to eat a lot daily, about a third a cup of mushrooms daily, it's fine. And all of them are very beneficial. Just don't go for poisonous ones, because that wouldn't give a good result. Then add some healthy fats. And in Thailand, you have got a lot of good healthy fats. We have what's called non-essential fats, because non-essential, not because they're not good, but because your body produces them. So you have the saturated fats that are found in animal foods. That's why we produce our own saturated fats within our bodies, and they constitute our cells. But we still can get some, and it's good to get some from nature, and they occur naturally in coconuts, avocados, and tropical oils. And then we have the monounsaturated fats, olives and olive oil, nuts and avocados. And again, although our body produces monounsaturated fats, they are still a very important part of our cell membranes. So if you get them from good sources, it's still very beneficial. And we know that olive oil is very healthy. It's not as easy to get in Thailand, but you have access to other very good fats. Just to remind you that although cashews are very common, especially in Thailand also, they are not a nut. And so of all of the nuts that you can eat, those are the ones that I would actually eat the less. And then you have the essential fatty acids, are called also EPAs or EPAs. And those are the ones our body does not produce. And there are only two, omega-6 and omega-3. Omega-6, linoleic acid. You can get it from seeds, sunflower, pumpkin, hemp, from nuts like walnuts, almonds, and cashews, and avocados. And again, cashews is not considered a nut, it's actually a seed that grows outside of the fruit, but it's rich in omega-6. And then we have the omega-3s, ALA, alpha-linolenic acid, which has been talked a lot about fish oils and omega-3s, but the truth is, if we get proper omega-6, not from adulterated oils, but from seeds and nuts, we won't need to supplement with omega-3s. We can get our omega-3s from shea and flax seeds, walnuts, and even some vegetables, Brussels sprouts, and avocados. And if you're paying attention, there's a commonality in all of these fats, and that commonality is the avocado. Avocado has the nearly perfect fat profile. It has saturated, monounsaturated, and polyunsaturated fats. So it really mimics almost the membrane of your cells. So it's a great addition to your salads, your soups. It's creamy. You can even put it on your smoothies. It's a great, great fat. And many people ask me, well, if I'm not eating animal products and I'm not drinking milk, where do I get my protein? And this guy will tell you, really, And the reason is, if you look at a gorilla and the amount of muscle a gorilla has, and it's very similar in genetic to us, and it only eats leaves and fruits and things that it finds in the jungle and not animal products. So where does he get his protein? Well, all the essential amino acids are present in plants. That's why animals have it, because they get them from plants. Otherwise, we wouldn't have them. So we don't really need to eat animals in order to get our protein. And it's easy to look at the biggest, strongest animals in nature, like elephants, rhinos, horses, and the ability that they have to build muscle, their longevity, their endurance. They are all the big examples that you probably want to look for. So if you want to be healthy, you don't need to eat animal protein. And for those of you who still have doubts, here it's a good chart that shows us that spinach, about 50% of the calories in spinach are protein, and 45% of the calories in broccoli are protein. And then if you come here down to the chart, you have beef, 85% lean beef, that has 37% of its calories in protein, so it's less. And people say, oh, so I just eat spinach and I'll get enough protein. It's not like that, because if you eat 500 calories of spinach and half is protein, and you eat 500 calories of beef and half is protein, and 37% is protein, but you'd have to eat a lot of spinach to get 500 calories and not so much as beef. So what I tell people is you have to eat a little bit of everything, and especially nuts and seeds will help you to give you much more protein, because they also have more calories. So if you were to eat all your protein from spinach, you would have to eat maybe almost 2 kilos of spinach a day, and I think that's way too much. So diversify and introduce different plant sources of protein within your diet. Even fruits have a lot of, lemons have 16% of their calories in protein. So just diversify and make it colorful. And now just jumping quickly into Dr. Lodi's recommendations from last week to prevent the COVID-19. If you remember, we recommended you to have vitamin A, C, D3, magnesium, zinc, selenium, manganese, and then propolis, green tea, and water. These last 3, it's easy for you to get. So propolis is actually what the bees produce as a form of a wax that they use to build their colonies. And you can buy it in a spray form that would be probably better for you. It's been proven to be very good when fighting upper respiratory tract infections. Then green tea, you can drink throughout the day, 2-3 cups a day, and plenty of water, so about 3 liters of water a day. It also depends what you're eating, so don't make it, learn how to listen to your body here when drinking water, and drinking also when you're thirsty. Now let's talk about the vitamins. Vitamin A, you can get it from foods like dandelion greens, carrots and carrot greens, parsley, broccoli, sweet potato, kale, spinach, pumpkin and squash, and so on. So although you can still want to supplement with some pills, you can still get it from foods. So try to eat more of these foods, not just because of COVID-19, but also because we find that most of our cancer patients are deficient on vitamin A. Most of them are also deficient in vitamin C, and like Dr. Lodi said, probably most of us are deficient on vitamin C. So you want to eat things like guava, kiwi, bell peppers, strawberries, papaya, broccoli, kale, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, and so on. The thing that we are deficient in vitamin C is because we don't produce our own, like other primates also don't produce, and they eat much more vegetables than we do. So since we cannot consume as much as they do, we can juice them, or you probably need to also supplement orally. Vitamin D3 is simple, it's just get sunlight choose the time of the day when the sun is on its peak. Try to expose most of your skin, and at least maybe 15 minutes in the sun would be ideal. So you can actually convert the cholesterol in your skin into vitamin D3, which is a super important pro-hormone in your body. It acts like a pro-hormone. Then we have the micronutrients. Magnesium, eat a lot of green leafy vegetables, sea vegetables, nuts, beans, whole grains, cacao, and avocado. Zinc, you can get it from tofu, hemp seeds, lentils, oats, mushrooms, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds. And selenium, you can get it from Brazil nuts, broccoli, garlic, spinach, asparagus, mushrooms, sunflower seeds. It's interesting because only 2 to 3 Brazil nuts a day will give you the necessary amounts, daily recommended amounts of selenium. So that's pretty easy to reach. And actually you cannot eat many Brazil nuts because you can get too much selenium. And manganese, again, nuts, spinach, whole grains, pineapples. So if you have a diverse whole plant-based diet, you'll probably be okay. If you want to prevent, or if you're already more vulnerable, you may want to supplement orally with some supplement that you trust. Just to finish, phrasing what the father of medicine, Hippocrates, said, let food be thy medicine and thy medicine be food. And that's it. Just allow your food to heal you, and you won't need doctors. So think as doctors should be teachers and teach you how to live so you can take better choices. And when you're educated, you have the power to choose and to heal yourself. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Vanessa. Darren?
Wow, that was incredible. Thank you so much, Vanessa. We've had quite a few questions. So if we can go back to people just raising their hand, and Jen, maybe you can help direct the questions towards Vanessa.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Let me put the participation.
I just wanted to add something, and it was really interesting what Vanessa was saying about, you know, being resistant to some of these ideas, and she'll be the first to tell you that I was very resistant to this whole idea of I won't get enough protein from not eating animal protein, and she's educated me on why, you know, it's so important to eat all of these plant-based, and as she mentioned in her presentation, I think it's really important for each and every one of us to become our own guinea pigs and to try these things out for ourselves. And the most important point that Vanessa stressed is that there's no one diet that fits all. We have to get a little bit creative with the nutrients we're doing and try these things out.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe we can start with the first questions where Kun Virinya put it in. So he said, like, I have a stomach problems and acid reflux. Is it okay for me to do fasting?
Acid reflux and what else?
Stomach problem, what she said.
Oh, yeah. So we find that usually you can fast. You may at the beginning notice some increase in the symptoms. Mm-hmm. So you may have to take it slowly and build up little by little your periods of fasting. Mm-hmm. Because when you're, what happens with acid reflux is that actually when our body is not producing enough acid, which happens to most people after the age of 40 or 50, so the valve that sits on top of our stomach doesn't close properly, and so there's a reflux of that acid through the esophagus and through the mouth. So there's not enough acidity, and then people sometimes, and doctors unfortunately, prescribe antacids, which aggravate the problem. It treats the symptom, but it aggravates the underlying issue. So when you're not eating, that still may happen for some time, but with time your body may be able to recuperate. And you may also want to consult with your physician, because probably some hydrochloric acid will help you to stabilize your production of acid within your stomach. So I would try to start trying with the time-restricted eating, and having a broader window of time when you do not eat. And you just drink water. Sometimes warm water will help to calm the stomach before really trying a water fast, because sometimes people do feel aggravated symptoms when they start water fasting and they have acid reflux.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. So Darren, you want to read the Susan questions?
Yep, sorry, I'll just punch it up on my screen. The next one we have is from Matthew, okay? And his question, a really great question. It was, is triggering ketosis the main driver of autophagy and associated with benefits of fasting, time-restricted feeding? Are there any other factors in play? So with fasting, is our main goal trying to trigger ketosis, or are we looking for other benefits as well?
We're looking to other benefits, but then definitely ketosis is very beneficial. Actually, the products the ketone bodies produce during ketosis are very beneficial, even for our gut bacteria. So I didn't talk too much about ketosis. It's been associated now a lot with ketogenic diets, which are sometimes not well done. But yeah, once we are fasting, we enter a state of ketosis, and much of the benefits I shared here are also from this ketogenic state, where we're burning fat for fuel instead of burning sugars. We can also do this with a ketogenic diet, which Dr. Lodi mentioned, I think, last week, or if he did not. But we always think of ketogenic diets as a process that you do for about 4 weeks. It's very hard to do it, especially on a plant-based diet. It's a good way for people who don't see themselves fasting at all, or to transition. Actually, one helps the other. So if you do the fasting, it's easier to do the ketogenic diet. If you do the ketogenic diet, it's much easier to turn into a fasting, because your body is adapted to burning fat. And what takes more time and energy and effort is just being keto adapted to burning fat. So yeah, ketosis is excellent, and is actually the only way we have to realize if people are in a therapeutical fasting is measuring their blood ketones. So past the day 2 or 3, your body is burning fat, and we can measure that on the blood. And it's also when we know it's time to stop a fast is when the body will start dropping the ketones, which means you don't have enough fat, and we don't want to burn muscle. So yeah, that's a very important thing too.
All right, thank you, Vanessa. Okay, Susan had a question. Susan wanted to know, she's got, her digestive system has been abnormal lately. I think a lot of us can relate to this, just everything's been a little abnormal lately with the current situation we're in. But Susan asked, can fasting help me with my digestion during this challenging period?
For sure. I mean, like I said, if you're having any type of digestive issue, you can only heal if you allow your digestive system to rest. So if you do fasting, you will feel better, and it's transversal. Now, what happens with many people now is that the stress level is very high, and we know that all of our digestive tract, we have about 5 pounds of bacteria. So if we're stressed, and most of our emotions and even our immune system is contained within that bacteria, so it's normal that you're experiencing problems. So you may want to address not just the physical part, but the mental part that is triggering those problems, and that's probably stress. So some techniques to manage stress, like meditation, prayer, or whatever is meaningful for you. I don't want to say here that, again, there's no answer that it's good for everyone, but finding something that will help you to manage stress. And again, try to use fasting as a tool to eat better, because I think that's the first step for us. And once things start to get on track and we eat better, we fast, we feel better, then everything becomes better, and you probably feel much better also.
That's so important what you said, Vanessa, and this is what Dr. Lodi talked about last week, as well as the psychoneuroimmunology and the link between, you know, what's going on up here, our thought process, the stress, and also our immune system and digestion as well. And well, that's a great lead in for next week. What we're going to be looking at is just some effective strategies to help deal with stress with just simply moving our body. We have another question. It's has to do with time restricted eating. Okay. So it is, how long do you recommend to get up and be active before you start eating for time restricted eating? For example, I want to start eating at 10 and stop at 4. So the window there would be 2, 4, 6 hours. What do you think about that, Vanessa? What is your recommendation on that?
That looks perfect. That's actually what we recommend to our patients. So a 6-hour window. And again, if you want to start early in the morning or later in the day, is really dependent on your schedule. And some people, for example, they want to have dinner with their families, so they prefer to have dinner than to have a breakfast. But if you eat within that 6-hour window, that means you finish on that 6-hour window, your last meal, and then you don't eat anything until you go to bed. It's perfect because you have already digested your food. You probably will sleep better. You will feel amazing. So that sounds to me like a great window. And you can even exercise when you're fasting. I always do it. And once you get used to it, in the beginning, it may take some time to adjust, but once you get used to it, you're going to find that you feel great, and you don't need to eat in order to move. So you can do your daily activities just normal, and then eat within your window that you choose. And I think that's a perfect method. Yeah. 10 to 4. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. All right, Vanessa, our next question is from Dave. And I'm just going to read out his question. I'm very thin. I've been that way all my life, with my weight at 85 to 70 kgs, and he's 183 centimeters tall. I'm now 80 years old, and because I have lost muscle mass and I am now 60 kgs, should I fast or not? And I don't want to steal your answer, but the whole idea of releasing the growth hormone, how important is that with fasting?
Yeah, so you don't want to fast for a prolonged time or even a water. I think you can still do the time restricted eating, but maybe elongate your window a little bit more for 8 hours. But make sure you don't eat before you go to bed, 4 to 5 hours before you go to bed. So when you achieve the peak of production and release of growth hormone, which between midnight and 3 a.m., you're actually your digestion is completely stopped. Your body is only producing hormones, is only resetting the clock. And so you can stimulate a little bit of that growth hormone, because in your case, you're underweight. We want to stimulate muscle growth. So we don't want to stimulate fat absorption, because anytime we are putting fat in our body, even if people may think they look healthier, but fat actually, it's where we store toxins. So we don't want to store fat. So we want to build muscle. And even at your age, the best way and the only natural ways to stimulate muscle growth is through proper sleep, fasting, and exercise. And I think Darren can then talk about exercise and how stimulate muscle growth. So we try to do the intermittent, the time restricted in an 8 to 10 hour window. Most importantly, don't eat 4 to 5 hours before sleep.
Great. Thank you, Vanessa. Is there any more questions? This is a great discussion that's coming up. And I just want to let everybody know that we are recording this, and we will send the link out as soon as the recording is done. And this is just great. And there's been so much information that Vanessa has given us. And what we're also going to do is we'll do a summary, and we'll make sure everybody gets out a summary and Vanessa's recommendations as well. Does anybody else have questions any more questions before we stop today's session? Okay, here's another question, Vanessa. Would it be okay for a diabetic patient to practice time-restricted eating? Do we need a little bit more clarification? Is it type 1 or type 2 diabetes?
Well, I don't need clarification. If it's type 1, advise with your doctor or do it under medical supervision. So there's still people getting very good results with controlling their type 1 diabetes with fasting or with time-restricted eating. That said, I wouldn't recommend it if you're not advising with your doctor. If it's type 2, definitely it's beneficial, because if we think of diabetes as something triggered by insulin resistance, we can think of insulin as alcohol. So if you're alcohol dependent, you can only stop your addiction if you stop drinking alcohol. If insulin is your trigger and is what's creating addiction in your body, you can only stop it if you stop eating so much. So you produce insulin every time you eat. The less time you eat, the less insulin you produce, and so that will help to reverse the diabetic state if it's prediabetes or diabetes type 2.
Thank you. Very, very good. And this is a great lead in too for next week, is what we'll look at is the role of accumulating movement throughout the day to not only help manage stress, but also the role it plays on the insulin signaling pathway as well.